Yes, the idea that space is about multiplicity is, I think, terribly important. And as a result of that, there's something ungovernable about it, and something that is constantly escaping from very tight regulation, and in spite of all of the cameras you have around on the streets and all the rest of it. So there is, I think, an interesting aspect to that, which is that geography doesn't fit at all well with the main lines of reason which exist in the social sciences or elsewhere at all. And it's been one of the big sources of permanent frustration in my life, I suspect also in Doreen's, that it's so hard to get anybody in any other discipline to listen to you, and when they do, to even understand what the hell you're talking about. And I think we've both been there a lot. And initially in our early years, nobody was interested even in the concept, but then when people became interested in disrupting everything, they suddenly found space as a means to do it. So space got used as a metaphor throughout a lot of areas of humanities and social science to kind of disrupt the received wisdom. But it was a metaphor. And they still didn't take much notice of exactly what it was that we guys were talking about. You want me to call you a guy, do you? It's all right.
I don't mind to talk.
Okay, that's all right. So I think that there's this sort of permanent frustration, and it still exists. I mean, Doreen's mentioned the cosmopolitanism book. You know, if I write books like the neoliberalism book, the sales are immense. If I write the Enigma, it goes all over the place. The Cosmopolitan book dies, you know. Nobody's going to read that one, you know. Why? Because it's too much about actually what we're talking about in the terms of space and the like. Now, one of the ways I want to shift a little bit the conversation is that in that book, I took the view that really you can't talk about space in isolation from concepts of place and environment. And I took the view that the founding concepts of geography are space, place, and environment, and that there is a way in which those three concepts interrelate to each other. And I was trying to find a way to theorize, if you like, about the nature of those relations. And here's, I think, what becomes very significant to me politically, that if there is a process of place making, it almost invariably means shaping an environment. And shaping an environment has tremendous political implications for how people in the world think. My favorite example here is that one of the ways in which capitalism survived after World War II, given that there had been the Depression of the 1930s, and of course the war had solved the Depression problem, but then the issue was, what do you do after? And the answer in the United States was suburbanize, build the suburbs. Vast amounts of surplus capital go into building the suburbs, making the suburbs. In other words, places were being made and continue to be made, of course. Now people like to make gated communities, and you know, and they sell something called community, or some, you know, come to something lakes and have the perfect lifestyle, all this kind of stuff. Now, part of the problem in the United States, as you may know, are the political attitudes of many people. The political attitudes have a lot to do with the daily life they have in the suburbs. In other words, making spaces and places and environments in the way that capital made them, partly out of some sort of necessity to find some way to use all of that surplus productive capacity that had been built up in World War II and absorbing it in a kind of huge process. And it wasn't only the suburbs, of course, it was also about the American South and West, integrating the national space. So here you would, if you look at what's happened in the United States since 1945, you would see that there's been a continuous process of transformation of spatial relations, of environments, and of placemaking, and that those processes have not been innocent in relationship to political consequences. I think it's no accident that the Tea Party is saying the kinds of things it's saying. Typically comes from those environments. There's a tendency to diss them all as kind of rednecks or something or other, but they're not. They're discontented, individualistic suburbanites who are stuck in a situation where there is a fear of falling. And the fear of falling has almost everything to do with the fact that for the first time ever, I think, an American president went to a G20 meeting in Seoul and was basically blown off by everybody. America cannot call the shots anymore. And many people are kind of saying, well, we've got to do something about this. And it's not calling the shots because Obama is weak or something like that. Put Sarah Palin in there and you'll be okay. Because if she goes there, she'll go probably with a nuclear weapon and say, I'll stick it up your backside if you don't do what I'm doing. I mean, she's kind of that kind of person. So people want something like that.